Hey, it's Terry, and this is the Something Spooky review of Annihilation. Annihilation was released in 2018 by Paramount Pictures. It was made available on Netflix very soon after that. It was directed by Alex Garland, who had previously directed Ex Machina and also wrote 28 Days Later. Alex Garland has also been active in graphic novels and video games. He's been in a lot of different industries. It's very interesting. Annihilation had a $43 million box office against a $40 to $55 million budget. It's a little unclear, but either way, it at best broke even, probably lost some money. It has an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is, of course, very good. On the surface, Annihilation is sci-fi horror. It is kind of a degree of like what they call high fantasy. I would call it like high sci-fi science fiction because it is just that kind of immediate concept that is going to have a lot of complex emotions and deep intellectual ruminations inherent in just the basic idea of the movie. It's visually spectacular. It is beautiful. The effects look great. There's a real vision to the film. It really is just a gorgeous movie. And that's probably where we see some of that budget come into play because the effects themselves are pretty jaw-dropping. There are some slow moving parts throughout the movie and it is a little long. So those two things kind of go hand in hand. It can kind of get caught up in its own ways a little bit. There's a hidden character drama element to the film, which is interesting. I feel like it must be more pronounced in the book. The film is based on a book by Jeff Vandermeer, and the character drama in the movie, it always feels like it's kind of happening just out of reach, and maybe that's how it is in the book too, but it's an element of the movie. There are definite major points where it escalates, but overall it feels like it's kind of happening just out of sight. So at the start, the movie begins a little slow, and it takes a while to establish itself and get us into the concept of the movie. That contributes to its length and its overall kind of plotting feel at points. But I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, and I won't ever spoil anything, but the central premise of the movie is the idea of the Shimmer, which is this field, this area that is expanding, and anything that is in it is getting kind of mutated and warped, and they don't know, they think it's alien, they don't know exactly what it is. Once we get to the Shimmer, the movie is great and it looks amazing. That's when most of that stuff starts, but it does take about 30 to 40 minutes to get there. And while there's some character development and plot progression and stuff leading up to that, it's part of what makes this movie a little bit long. Now the Shimmer itself looks great and it immediately hits with that impact. And once they're inside the Shimmer, again, I won't spoil anything, but they do some cool things right away to kind of make it feel unnatural and throw things off. And then there are embodiments. There are physical embodiments of the Shimmer. There are creature designs and monsters, if that's what you want to call them, that look absolutely outstanding and play very much into the whole concept of the Shimmer. So they're very unique designs. And it goes back to those great visuals and just the total vision of the story. So everything is laced with the psychological and philosophical threat that the film is producing, that it is proposing. Even the embodiments of the Shimmer and the threat are kind of reminders of exactly what it is they are facing off against, and that's the true horror. One way the movie starts to stumble again is by over-explaining some elements like this. It gets really kind of deep in the weeds, and I'm sure probably, I would guess, more so in the book, about exactly how this is happening. And that's interesting. It's cool to see that it's so well thought out, but it doesn't make for very exciting storytelling. And sometimes it kind of starts to drag at those points while it explains itself. So overall, it's more creepy. There are some definite big scares, but overall it's kind of more unsettling and eerie, and you're trying to figure out what's going on than it is like outright scary. One of the problems with the film is that most of the characters are as expendable as they feel. There is a group of characters, but they basically amount to side characters. There's a good intrigue to the central characters that they are able to kind of keep raising the stakes with and keeping it interesting, but the side characters pretty much feel just like that, like side characters. The film has, and I won't spoil anything again, but it has a very classic sci-fi ending. It is a little bit of a cliffhanger, but it also just kind of like provides the intrigue to the story and kind of leaves you wondering what the next beat is in a good way. And that's kind of what science fiction is. It asks a lot of questions and it can never hope to really provide all of the answers. So the way that this film is able to keep its central intrigue, and in the book is the first of 3 books, so the story does continue, but this is a standalone movie, but it's able to kind of keep that central premise interesting all the way to the end. Overall, I really liked Annihilation. I'm not huge on sci-fi horror. I love Alien, of course, and some of the 1950s sci-fi horror things, but overall it takes a lot more for me to sit down and watch a sci-fi horror, but I'm really glad that I finally gave Annihilation a chance. I'm going to give it a B+. It's very strong visually, there are great effects, it has an interesting concept, it is just a little slow and can get caught up in its own wheels a bit. But hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and remember to follow Something Spooky. Thanks.